Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cisco Optics Podcast, where we talk about pluggable optics for networks. Single-mode fiber transformed telecommunications in the 1970s and 1980s by raising the ceiling for communication bandwidth over transoceanic distances. It took years of R&D to get there, though. Remember, we're sending light through tens of kilometers of glass without regeneration. I mean, imagine how pure the glass of an 80-kilometer thick window needs to be in order to see through it. This is episode 44, and we begin a new conversation with Roshene McCool, expert in fiber networks for telecommunications and scientific instrumentation at Corning Optical Communications. We begin with a background before joining Corning and how it prepared her for her current position there. Roshene McCool is a Senior Market and Technology Development Manager for Corning Optical Fiber and Cable, specializing in single-mode fiber and access networks. She provides technical and market insight for Corning's global fiber and cable product line management teams. Roshene has 30 years of experience in engineering and optical communications systems and subsystems, including many years designing networks for advanced radio telescopes. Roshene has held project management and coordination lead roles in diverse teams throughout her career. Roshene is the acting chair of the Women in Fiber Committee for the FTTH Council Europe and is the winner of the Corning Optical Communications You Make a Difference Award 2022 for her leadership of diversity initiatives in Corning. Roshene holds a master's degree in electrical and electronic engineering from the University of Nottingham, United Kingdom, and is a chartered member of the Institute of Engineering and Technology. And now join me as I talk with Roshene McCool. Roshene, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thanks so much for making the time. I understand it's a bit late for you in the day, being in the UK.
Yeah, I'm based in the UK, so it's my afternoon, but it's not so late. You're not digging into my evening.
Okay, great. Well, you know what? If you don't mind, I'd like to start with just your background, like how you got into fiber optics and what led you to Corning.
Yeah, certainly. So I did a Master of Engineering degree in electrical and electronic engineering with French. So I spent a year in France studying electronic engineering, and
Wow.
straight out of college, I got a job at a British cable company called BICC. And it was a very exciting time. I was in their technology centre, and it was in the early days, so this is sort of early 1990s. It was the early days of optical fibre amplifiers, and sort of a burgeoning development of networks and network techniques. And so one of my first jobs was to build an optical amplifier. I didn't actually build an optical amplifier. I managed to build a laser because it's not so easy to splice those erbium doped fibers to standard single mode fiber. I mean, we probably get onto that later, but the splicing of fibers and that interface created all these reflections in the amplifying fiber. So I ended up making a laser, but that was a real learning experience. And
I did some work with fiber lasers as well when I was in grad school.
Yes, there's a connection
I certainly,
there.
What kind of splicing did you do?
So I was
what instruments?
This was really in the very, very early days of erbium-doped fiber amplifiers. So people were just kind of figuring it out. And I was trying to do a standard splice between an erbium-doped fiber amplifier and a standard single-mode fiber. And of course, the numerical apertures of those erbium-doped fiber amplifiers are quite different from a standard single-mode. So it's difficult to get a good connection, and what you really need is a sort of tapered fiber or something of that sort,
right,
which I didn't have at the time. I was just right in my early days of figuring it out. Even with getting hold of some good isolators, it still wasn't a great optical fiber amplifier, but it was definitely a learning experience.
Around what year was this?
This would have been about 1993, 94, something like that.
Okay. So they had fusion splicers at that time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a
I
few
remember
slides I was using, yeah.
like Fujikura had one.
Yeah.
Another Japanese company, I forgot which one.
Furukawa, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if you remember, an American company in New Jersey, Vitran,
No,
a startup made a splicer. That was in the late 90s, I think.
Yeah. Well, I became very familiar with splicers during my career because after I'd finished in BICC and I did lots of I didn't just fail at doing a fiber amplifier. I did lots of projects for them. I had my children and I wanted a job that would give me a bit of flexibility while I had very young children. And so I moved into academia. And I was the fiber optic engineer at a place called Jodrell Bank Observatory. So Jodrell Bank Observatory is a big radio astronomy observatory in the UK. And my job was to connect all their radio antennas with fiber.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I did a lot of splicing there.
Wow.
And that was really interesting because those radio telescopes, they're actually quite analogous to a 5G network in the sense that there are these big antennas creating loads of data and they all have to connect up to a central point. Except the data rates were just enormous because these are gigahertz radio receivers. We had to digitize that signal. And the signal is the hiss of the universe. So it's basically Gaussian noise until they correlate it together and get the signals out of it. So it couldn't be compressed. So the data rates were really enormous for that epoch. But of course, my kids grew up and I thought, okay, it's time to leave academia and join the real world.
You have so much time on your hands.
I joined Corning. I was kind of busy, but I think there is there's the world of academia moves slowly, let's say, and I guess although it's really interesting to connect these fiber optics to interferometers and radio telescopes, the world of mobiles, 4G, 5G was starting to come through, and there was something really exciting about the idea of not just being able to connect sort of a few radio telescopes together, but actually like the whole communities and whole countries with these advanced mobile networks. And so I joined Corning about 6 years ago now. And I've been working as one of their senior market and technology development managers since. And that's a really interesting job because it sort of sits on the line between technology and commercial. So it's about understanding what customers need, understanding what that means for future products, really trying to understand where the value is in products for customers. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
So even though you were very experienced and an expert in fiber and the lasers, the application while you were in academia was basically in the microwave. Is it microwave range, 10 gigahertz? Or?
So the radio telescopes themselves are they're using sort of gigahertz scale radio antennas, but every single one of those dishes in a radio telescope is connected by fiber.
Oh, okay.
And it's connected by fiber for basically 3 networks. The first is the data network. The second is the local oscillator network.
Okay.
And the third is the monitoring control network.
Okay. So I imagine you must have learned quite a bit about astronomy and RF technology. So how was it
It,
moving to
yeah.
a place where it seems, at least from the outside, to be predominantly an optics-centric focus?
So I did learn a little bit about astronomy by osmosis, really. It's surprising what you pick up when you're in those sorts of environments. But one of the things that I think is the same is clearly the technology. I was an optical engineer, and I was designing optical networks. So that's sort of a similar idea. But one of the things that I did a lot of was system engineering, and I did a lot of coordination of international teams. So that's what you might call international science politics, which I say is like normal politics, but everyone's got a PhD.
Wait, sorry. So that was something that you did while in academia also, or something you? Okay.
Yeah.
And that carried over.
So these are teams right across the world.
And so that's something that you carried over to your new role.
Yeah, because being able to talk to different teams, cross-functional teams, being able to coordinate people around an idea is one of the things I do in Corning, which is to take what customers need, to take that into technical teams and to manufacturing teams, and kind of get people galvanized around an idea of a new product, or an adjustment to an existing product, or that kind of thing. So that was very similar, and also the analytics. So I really, really enjoy analytical aspects of the job that I do, and some of the market development work requires an ability to look at trends within the market and figure out where they will lead and have logical justifications for that. And in academia, some of my work was associated with analytics. So, for instance, I transferred a lot of what I learned in radio astronomy and physics into Corning. There were a lot of transferable skills, but what I was able to do in Corning, I think, because it's such a big organization and so involved in commercial telecommunication network, is just that the work has much greater reach.
So, excuse me. So do you find, I assume that the communication with international colleagues, are you talking about working with people within Corning internationally, or customers internationally, or both?
Actually, well, customers internationally, so networks right across the world, from long-haul networks to mobile networks to access networks. Those networks are impacting on people's lives right across the world. I mean, everybody's life. And if you think about the recent pandemic, I mean, they were absolutely necessary for us to engage. So that they really had an impact in that way.
So do you find, are there differences, are there differences in preferences around the world that translate into? That was the first part of my new conversation with Roshene McCool. Next time, we'll get into geography. Hey, we have a new website. It's optics.podcastpage.io. That's optics.podcastpage.io. You can either listen there or use the same podcast platform you've been using all along. Please subscribe. Better yet, leave a review, especially if you use Apple Podcasts. Remember, we're part of the Cisco Podcast Network, where you can find other great Cisco podcasts too. We also have educational videos on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com and search on Cisco Optics. Thank you for listening. This is Pat Chou, Product Manager at Cisco Optics. The next episode is part 2 of my conversation with Roshene McCool. Until next time.